There we go. All right, so first, thanks Cloud Village for having me here. I'm surprised with this amount of people here this morning. Like, I'm not a Sunday DEF CON guy. Like, I came to DEF CON since in 2007, but I usually miss Sundays. So, for a couple of reasons, right? And today we're going to talk about SSM, weaponizing, practical exploits and hardening for AWS. Who here is use SSM or know about SSM? Everybody is? Okay. I hope you will sleep well tonight. It's just like a bunch of features. It's not a flaws, but it's good to know like what you need to do like to try to protect, right? And if I could change a bit the title, it's not working this. Well, I'm here. And to avoid some problems with some lawyers at AWS, maybe the better title is Prevent SSM Abuse, right? But it's the same way, like security techniques for hardening AWS. So who am I? I'm Director of Research at Clouds. I live in Brazil, in Florianopolis. I live in an island. It's a pretty cool place to visit in the summer. The winter, the water is so cold, it's not a good place to be. I used to teach AWS trainings in Brazil. I have 2 patents that here is in US Patent Office that it's not related to cloud. Besides that, I'm a proud dad and husband. My son is here, like his first DEF CON. He's 11 years old, so he's very excited here. And if you have kids, the next gen area here is very, very cool. Like they have parties. I stayed like with them like until 9:30 p.m. So, besides that, I used to do Ironman triathlons. I was half of this size that time. Now I just do some powerlifting and stuff related. And the motivation behind this, it's like I have some kind of relationship that I don't know if I love or I hate SSM, and especially when I knew like I used a start session part that I could get inside the machine, and the machine could be in a private subnet and so on. Figure out, man, this is a kind of magician, right? And something that it's really hard to understand how. And besides that, the privilege is something that over permissive stuff. And so I didn't know if I like or I didn't like. Besides my research, there is a couple of research prior to that Mitiga has a nice blog post. Rem McCart, he has a lot of different posts and blog posts related with SSM. This is special, I'll talk better later. So he has a bunch of works related. Edward, that he spoke here, I think on Friday, he did some cool talks too related with the run command. And at last, but not more important, Pacu framework, they used to have those exploitation. So here's our agenda. Just a quick overview about SSM, right? Understand the potential abuse patterns for SSM. Detection and mitigations. Detection is something really difficult. Like most of my research, I'm a blue team guy, so most of my research, I try to simulate something and to create detections. And so when I saw like how trying to monitor or trigger alert for that, it's pretty, how can I say, it's pretty difficult. And I will show here some points and some challenges that you're probably going to face, right? So a quick overview about AWS SSM. So what is SSM? SSM is a system that you centrally could manage and operate nodes at scale. And scale is always good, right? For bad or for good. And you could manage nodes in AWS EC2 instance, but you could run the agent on-premise or GCP or Azure or whatever you have a machine that you could run the agent. So it's mostly you have an agent that will connect to the SSM API, and it's a kind of bootnet, right? And so you have the C2 command and control. as most of the protection works. And the features, they have like some categories. Like if you look at the SSM manual, it has like around 3,400 pages. It's insane. Like this is a monster, right? And so they have the categories that is split the features. So we have the node tools part, right? That mostly for individual machines, for the nodes itself, it's instance on-premise or VMs. So we have the change management tools that automate and control maintenance or deploy tasks. And we have the application that deploy application configuration secrets. And we have the operation tools more for monitoring, investigation, and solving problems. And if you go deep on those features categories, we have like node tools, we have more features, right? Change management tool, we have a couple. Application, we have less. Operation tools, and here as I add others that I didn't know where to fit, so I just put here and if I read better, but especially AppStream. AppStream is a research that I did here and I present here in 2022, I think. And when I was researching, I saw that there is a SSM agent there, and so there is probably some good stuff, but I didn't take a look. And so to understand the potential SSM abuse patterns, I picked that matrix, and so in red we have some misuse, right, of the feature that I'm going to show you how it works and how easy it is to use that for malicious purpose. But the main idea is not to show like how easy it is to use for malicious purpose. It's to think like how I'll protect that, how I could try to solve this problem. And here it's possible misuse is some stuff that I know there is some room for being abused, but I didn't test at that time. So we have a bunch of room for improve this research and keep it growing. So the classics. The very first and I think the most common is run command. And run command, besides being used itself, like it's used by a bunch of the features that I'm going to show. But what's run command? Using run command, you can remotely and secure manage configuration in your managed nodes, right? And so you run a command to automation commons tasks and performance like nuance. Like in summary, what's run command? Run command is you run a command that if you have the permission, it will connect in the instance and will run a command as root, for example at Linux. And so you could do whatever you want if you have this permission. You have no permission itself in the node, but if you have the permission at AWS, you could run the command. And so in summary, how it works. You have the initiate, you validate the permissions. Here, mostly where you have more the way to protect, like least privilege, right? You control who can run command, who can send the command. That's the action, right? So you deliver the command to the agent, and the agent, as I said, like it will run the command inside the node as root at Linux. And so it will output the result, and you have the results. And in summary, I created this Python code. It's not public anywhere, but if you want, just drop me a message I could send to you. Like it was me and Vibe Coding, so my special analyst. So it make the life much easier because like everything that I'm showing here, like doesn't matter if it's Python code, but you could do using AWS CLI. There is no secret. And what I did here, I list, right? So runner list, my profile I use in the region, it's going to show the instance that I have here. So when you connect to some instance use SSM, you're not going to use IP or whatever, you're going to use the instance IP, the instance ID, sorry. And so the second one, I use the SSM runner to run, right? a command on this instance, and the command is ID, and so you have the results here, and as you can see, it's root. So you could do anything. If you have run command and you have like hundreds, dozens, hundreds, thousands of machines, you could run this in all your instance, right, running as root. And so this is the very common, the very classic using about SSM. And so you have SSM Manager. SSM Manager is where it starts my feeling if I like or not SSM. It was like a long time ago, because you could have, like, you don't want to keep a security group, you don't want to keep the machines exposed, and so you could use the session manager to connect in the machine, like SSM or anything else, but using the API, the AWS API, so you connect there, and you could run anything you want because you got the shell, right? And the very specific here, like if you're using VPC endpoint or you have a private subnet, you get inside the machine. Doesn't matter if the machine, there is no connection to the internet. So that's something that is really, it kind of scares me on the good way, like, because, okay, like, I don't know if the company has control of the permission, so that's the main problem. And how it works, right? And so it's exactly the same. You just run a start session. You probably need to install a plugin. And when you install a plugin, you run the AWS SLI. And one good point here, like, you should control the permission to, like, the main prevention is to control the permission about this. But it's going to save. You could enable, like, to save the whole. How can I say, the whole session. Like, if you use it's going to save at that S3 bucket, and you could just look what's happened. So it's a good way, like, if you are using this, like, to see, like, what's really going on. And in summary, I did the same here, right? Run, and so and so basically AWS CLI here, the profile, start session, the target ID, like, right, the instance ID. And so you get there, like, you get there as SSM user, but you just sudo su and you become root. So there is your root, right? And as I mentioned, there is no security group open, there is no public IP. You just connect on the AWS API and to redirect you to whatever instance you choose here, like to probably be. And to finish the classical part, we have the SSM documents, right? And so what is the SSM documents? Are documents that define actions that the system manager are going to execute. Here is a sample of a very common run shell script that will run a shell script on the Linux, right? And they expect some parameters, and one of the parameters are commands. And how it works, like, you're going to do SSM send commands, right? And we're using SLI. And you call the name of the document, and the parameters command is to run if config. So this command is run, it will be run as root, right? And so you could do whatever you want. But there is two categories there. We could find, like, some very interesting stuff. Like, you could customize documents for your needs. And so there is a bunch of automation that use it. So you could find a lot of secrets. The document could be public, but the most important part is that you could find some nice information. I'm going to show you. And share documents. Share documents is a very nice way to weaponize. Why? Because I'm going to show, but you could share your malicious document with any AWS account. It will be showing there on the AWS, the AWS account, but they don't need to approve there. So just share with some account and we're going to show. And basically how it works, like, you define the action and the workflow I'm terrible to be stopped here. I usually like the mic to be walking on the stage all the time. Sorry about that. And you define, right, the actions workflow. So create or select a document. You have pre-built documents that companies provide for you, like for example, Datadog, Trend Micro. Could be something, or it could create, right? And so you choose the type of the document. So document could be command, automation, runbook, session documents, package documents that will fit, depends on what you're using for. So the format of the file, a JSON or a YAML file, and you could have input parameters, or you could just embed the parameters there. It depends on what you're doing. And so it will be executed like with a run command or state manager. We're going to see session manager, maintenance windows, just-in-time nodes. So that's some things that where I put those in yellow, because it's like if you can run documents, so you probably could use on the malicious purpose. And here's a sample, like you could list the documents. So the very first sensitive data inside the document, I just create a sample here. Like you could just SSM list documents, filters, so your owner self, so your own documents. And when you run, you get the names of the documents, so you do the get documents. And I just use the JQ here. And so you're going to find probably, like, since you're using this document for automations and all kind of things, you probably could find some interesting sensitive data, because these documents are not public. It's like, and it's pretty common, like, is the correct way to use that? No, you should use the parameter store, the secrets. But it's the same way as you should use that for Lambda, and you export the environment. And you could, the same way that you put some information in user data, it's true. So you could find some, if you have access to account, and probably could find some good information here. And what I said, you could share, right? So here I have some documents I created. So I'm the owner, and you could modify the permissions. And when you modify the permissions, right, this is the destination account, that's the other account that starts with 8. And I add here, you could make it public, but I'm making private, but share with some accounts. And so what's going to happen is that this account, all the documents are here because I shared everything. And so you're kind of like, it will appear, and this target account, it doesn't need to accept that. So it's just going to show there. And so if you have access, you could use those documents when you're trying to do something that I'm going to show later. And this research was pretty cool from Remy McCartney, one of the researchers I just mentioned here, because what he did, like if you look, like you have when you have the previews, the previous documents created by the vendors, you have the name, usually something the name, and when you're looking for something, you just go there and you search for some name, right? And what he did, he created some documents, he used the same content, but in the end, he adds the poisonous part, right? So the malicious part. But he used it with the same name. And so like, I have no idea, like, what is the official, what is not the official. And what he did, like, in 15 days, he got, like, poisonous single AWS account because they run the documents and separate. So that's something you should really take a look. Like, if you are a vendor and you are providing some documents, make sure that nobody is using this kind of type squatting or whatever, I don't know the name, and to see like if nobody's going to create that. I don't know if there is a way to block that, but that's a kind of really interesting part. And here's the remaccarton.me, so they have a lot of good information there. So SSM is just part of what they release. And so, not so classic, all right? Not so dry here, right, Vegas? And so the not so classic part. And the first one is distributor. And so if you look at distributor, what is distributor? Distributor helps you to package and publish software to AWS. And what is cool here, you can package and publish your own software. So if you can publish your own software, you could build anything. And it's pretty simple to create. And you could deploy it by using AWS run command one time, or you could schedule it using state manager. And so you keep your persistence or keep whatever you're trying to do here. And how is the flow? The flow you prepare, right, the software is on the first time I spent some minutes to understand how it's going. And so you create your package, you deploy, and so you decide if you want to deploy once or deploy schedule, if you want to keep persistence. And how it works to prepare the software. First, you need to create this manifest. And the manifest, you have a version, you have the name of the zip. You create a file that you need to have the install, uninstall, and something you want to do, or you could use some RPM or whatever. You need to have the hash of the file. And what I did, inside my install, I basically have transform my reverse shell in executable. And so I'm running the reverse shell. And what I did here, let's call windsurf did for me. And was I just using some remote shell to this IP on this part. And those is my packets. And so I just create an uninstall file that you need to have there, because if not, it's not going to work, but it could be empty or just echo something. And so you go there on the interface. You could do that using AWS CLI or create some automation for that. And so you create the package, right? And you choose a location where is the package. And this another way, you could create the package in your, on your own account and make it public. And so you could just put here the S3 bucket with the file. So you don't need to create this package inside the target account. You could create outside the account and keep there. And besides that, remember you could create, right, the file, the package, and share. But shared stuff, the customer, the target account could see that. But if you just use your own URL, you just put there, and it's just going to see when you start, right? And so you create, call it DEFCON 33, you have all the information, the name of the attachment, the hash, and so on. And so I run using the interface, the command once. So initiate shell reverse plugin, it run the shell reverse on the end. And so what I did here, I used the netcat for waiting the connection. And so when it's run, it's connect back from my machine with my root stuff. And another point here, that's really crucial to understand, the defaults of security group, usually you control the ingress, right? So you put the parts that you want allowed to ingress, but the egress, the outgoing of the packages is default any part, any protocol by default. And so this is really bad. So if you want to avoid this kind of things and make a better control, besides manage the permissions, controlling better the security group is always a good opportunity. So the second one is state manager. When you start to read this, if you're a malicious, offensive guy, you'll probably see more things that I don't solve because I'm just a blue team trying to be proactive, right? I'm not an offensive guy. So what is session manager? Session manager, state manager, automate the process of keeping in a state that you define. So what do you define? I define one like a backdoor forever. So you run scripts on Linux, macOS, or Windows managed. And so it will keep running the thing you want, like for bad or for good. That's the point. And the same part here. You create the SSM documents designed with the state you want, right? And so you create association with the targets you want, and you apply. So basically, it's pretty simple. Like you have the schema, right? You create some description, the action, the name, and the command you want to run. So basically, I run a reverse shell here. You could do anything you want. You could do something better. You could do something encoded. You could do something much more interesting than that. But I'm just like proofing the concept. I have 10 minutes. Holy shit. Okay, I guess. Okay, let's talk. Give me more. And so you create an association, right? And you choose the document you want to use. And the main part, you choose the instance you want to apply it. And this is something really interesting because you could do this hourly, sorry about the English, daily. And so you could create like, or no schedule, just run once. I just need to run this once. And so you could create like a monster here, right? I just showing like some reverse shell that's easy to show the proof of concept, but you could create a software that you do that, do the collection, put all the information here, filtrate to somewhere, like something much more smarter. And so the same. I just waited the connection here, and like the same way, like just when I run, it's connecting back to my session. Another really interesting tool. That's something that there is a bunch of more room to explore the automation, because the automation, you could like talk with a bunch of different services. So it's common maintains deployment and remediation of AWS tasks. So always at scale. And like the keyword, you could create your own run book, right? And so if you could create, you could do whatever you want for bad or good. And so what is the automation? The automation is this interface. You could do a lot of things. You could connect to Slack, webhook, or whatever. You could use, and if you have the permissions, you could interact with a bunch of different services. And so for example, I want to interact with my RDS, and so you maybe could create something that will dump in the RDS and send to somewhere else. But what I did the basics just to to prove the concept. I create a DEFCON reverse shell. I use all the same. So the only difference here, I choose to have parameters, right? And so I could do something like if I need to change my C2, like I could change the parameters when I'm calling here. And you choose like the way you want to, like when you have too much instancing and so on, you could use some rate control. And I choose like the instance I want to run, the IP address, and the port of my reverse shell. So since I choose to have parameters, and what happened? The same, right? I'm just looking like in a very uncommon port. And that's what is very interesting. And as I mentioned, the security group needs to be better configured if you want to protect like for this kind of uncommon thing, right? I could for sure like, okay, this machine needs to connect for 443 HTTPS. You keep it open, I could put my reverse shell there. It's going to work, but you need to make the attacker lives more difficult. And this hybrid activations, this is something like when I start to look in, that's something that I like it more, because there is a research for Noah Dahan. He is for Tenable now. It was previous Hermetic, and he does some research related to pass role stuff. And there was a pass role related to SSM that I said, okay, I need to see there later because it seems interesting. And that day arrived, I don't know, 2 years later or something. But what is hybrid activation? Hybrid activation is when you use machines that's non-in-situ machines. It's not inside AWS. Just doesn't need to be inside AWS, right? Oh, sorry. Don't need. And so you have like your virtual machines, server on cloud. And what is interesting here, you're going to create a service role and so when you create, you generate the hybrid activation that will generate a code for you. And we install the SSM agent in some machine that could be in your on-premise, could be your virtual box, or could be on GCP, Azure, or whatever. And this machine will become a managed node. And what is really interesting here, when you create this machine will assume this role. And I was thinking about, like, I think it's one of the, maybe the coolest persistence you could do, because it's pretty hard to find that. Like, people are not looking for this kind of stuff. Because what I did here, I create, right? Oops, so I just create the hybrid activation, blah, blah, blah. Here, the name here is wrong in my print. I create another role here. And just register the code, blah, blah. And so my machine is going to show here. The only difference instead of start with I, it starts with MI, right? And so it's a managed instance, but it will be here. And I just go to my machine and run AWS /s get color identity. It will going to show my assumed role, DEFCON admin, and the name of the instance, as usually they do. And what I have here, I have the permission of that role. And so if I create a role that time with the trust relationship with SSM with administrator, I will have administration persistence. And like if I look there, this managed instance has this IAM role that has this managed policy associated. And so that's something really interesting. It's pretty hard, like, because like you have, you could be using your virtual box to do that, and so there is no big secrets. And it could be like, it's hard to find. If the company is using managed instance, they have a bunch of instances over there, it's pretty hard to find like what is not the good one. But what you could monitor is the least privilege, like if you have trust policy with SSM with over permissive permissions. And so this, I run this on another AWS account, and if you see, there is nothing related here, like, so if you're running on premise and so on, that will be the same. And in summary, what you could do is filtration, execution, privilege escalation, lateral movement, persistence, mass infection. And so the main point here is really important to understand the risk we have and how we could try to avoid. And to avoid, I have some samples here that to try to detect and mitigation. And so those are the most important actions to monitor, right? The start session, the send command, create association, create activation, register manage instance, create document, modify document permissions, get common invocation. And so this combination of actions could become something real bad for your environment. And so the send command. So the main difference here, I'm going to show later, but when somebody is abusing the run command from its own machine or not using the service, the main difference, you have the real source IP here. So you could like it's not coming from a service, a SSM service, it's coming from somewhere else. And maybe you could filter the source. If you're not using state manager or distributor, you could like create some policy like, okay, I use that, but I don't want to come from everywhere. So using conditional for IP source is something that really saves life. The start session is the same. So, but the start session, the main goal is like you're going to see like, somebody start a session for the target machine. So this is something like, it's hard like to say that this is malicious or this is not malicious, something like besides if you're filtering the IP. And so we have the SSM documents. Maybe someone is trying to share some documents with their account to try to see something or not. But basically what you have, like you have the modify permissions, DEFCON reverse shell, the name, and the account that is going to be permissions to this. So, but this mostly is in the attack account, right? Like maybe if you have some documents that has sensitive information, they are going to share with them, so they could keep you looking for if you change something. And the hyperactivation. And this happened on the source account. Oops, sorry. This happened on the source account. And so basically it will be the register managed instance, the source IP here, and that's all, right? But because there is not a lot of things to show, because like it's not something related with AWS, because it could run on premise, it could run on GCP or whatever. But the destination account, you have like register managed instance, right? You're going to have the activation ID. That's the problem with the Security Operations Center. Like 100% of the events that I receive from my customer from CloudTrail, I don't have the context. And when they're using ID, like I could trigger like, okay, some machine register managed instance with this activation ID, but I don't know if this activation ID is something that could be dangerous or not, because I need to have extra access. And so I could say like, okay, so with this activation ID, those are the information that are the role, and with the name of the role, I could see the permissions. And so something is really difficult for security operation centers. Like if I'm inside a company, I could create an access, and when this happens, enrich this with going there, ask this and this for the AWS API, and add to the information. And the nice part here, like you see that you have the AMI and the name of the instance. And the state manager, here is some difference. Like if we're using the create association send command, oh, don't do that at home. I'm using it as root on my lab, sorry. But like the create association is using one event and one source IP, different source IP. And when the state manager use this information that I associate, username will be state manager service, and the source IP will be ssm.amazon.blast. So if you are following the source IP or following the username, this kind of thing, you're going to miss the next step. And you need to take care, like when you're, for example, adding some condition for send command, and you're specifying, like for example, just your VPN IP source, we're going to broke this because this is not your VPN source. So you could write, and so we have this, like the problem, like I start automation execution. You remember I add like to have parameters, but the parameters are not showing here, so like I don't know what's going on. So that's a kind of thing that make the SOC analyst pretty harder. And the automation part, you have like a username here, the same, different keys, right, all the times. But the IP is the same for the create document and start automation, but the same. The send command is different source. So you need to take care for following, like I need to follow the IPs for detection. It's not going to work, but here at least the username is going to work. And some conclusions, I think I had out of the time, or I'm out of the time already. List privilege. The only way to protect things is list privilege. Like if you don't control the privilege and the key leaked, and it's pretty common to leak a key, you're going to have problems. Monitor roles, trust relationship. Make sure that if you're not giving too much permission for roles, especially that has relationship with service that could be abused. Control egress from security group, the follow is any, so control what is going out from your machine, not just what is getting in. And make sure you control who can manage SSM and from. That is not only for SSM, I think for any service, like if you control that. Enable session audit and monitor those files. Verify documents. Here is tricky, like make sure you know owner IDs of documents you're using. Because for example, that research that, I know it's not easy because there is not a bunch of information related with account IDs. If you're not using SSM, disable. What do I mean disable? Go to service control policy and deny SSM star, right? Because you're removing an attack vector. And monitor closely, know your context. If you're using SSM, it's not easy, but if you're using, you need to try to figure out like if there's something running going on. And that being said, that's my LinkedIn, my contacts, and that's it. Thank you very much.